All right, let's go to the NFC North. Yeah, NFC North time. And you've got the Detroit Lions team that you're very high on. They are plus 130. So you don't have to lay a price to take them in the North. Sam mentioned win total 10.5. They are the fourth favorite for the Super Bowl at 12-1. Green Bay is second favorite at plus 230. Depending where you look, there's some 9.5s. There's some 10.5s on the win total. They're 18-1 for the championship. Chicago plus 340 as the third favorite, up to 9.5 in some spots, or you can go over 8.5, but it's extremely juiced, 35-1 for the Super Bowl. And then the long shot in the division is the Minnesota Vikings at 11-1, between 6.5 and 7.5 for the win total. You just went over it with the Lions and why you're so high on them. It is wild about their schedule indoors. And really, you said 3 times they play outdoors. One of them's against San Francisco. So I don't even know if we count that, even though it's late in the year and you're going to have warm conditions there. 4 new defensive starters, but Sam, the biggest move was a non-move for Detroit. The OC, Ben Johnson, decided to stay.
Yep.
So Dan Campbell's not searching for a new OC. He might be doing that after this coming year, but they get him for 1 more year.
There are not many good teams at this point in time in the NFL that can have a really, really good season, retain the coach, the coordinator, and the quarterback. It's difficult because usually good coordinators leave for greener pastures. Then they get there and they realize, oh, it's not as green here. And then they get fired 3 years later, and then they go somewhere else as a coordinator. But that was huge for him to come back. And you mentioned the weather. Now, you have the schedule up, I assume. What's the coldest game they play in this year? I'm curious. Like, where do they go in November?
Oh, yeah.
And where do they go in December? Because I don't remember there being – like Chicago, I don't even think they play Chicago in November, December this year. Is it?
It's late. It's week 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
the worst.
they'll play in Chicago. And they lost, remember they lost that game last year. They opened 5. Detroit opened -5. It got blasted right away. It got bet down to 4 to 3.5. I think it closed 3. And that was when, how are the Lions only -3? And then Jared Goff was so cold. And they lost that game, but then they went all the way to the NFC title game. Only one real cold weather game is a huge exclamation point for that schedule. That is the perfect indoor football team. They have basically built that team to play well indoors. And I know that this sounds kind of like, like next level brainiac type stuff. Some people will say it's kind of square. Look at their numbers inside and look at their numbers outside. And you look at the splits in Jared Goff's career when he plays inside, when he plays outside, he's a different guy. So this lines up almost perfectly for Detroit. Coordinator back is huge. Talent, really, really good. You know, they had so many rushing touchdowns. I want to say almost 30 rushing touchdowns last year. But still, you had great seasons from St. Brown and Sam Laporta. They had skill on speed, on talent. And really, to me, the key to their offense is not the quarterback, not the running backs, not the receivers, not the tight end. It's maybe the best offensive line in the NFC, Joe. Offensively, they are absolutely loaded. They are loaded. And in the year of our Lord 2024, you need an offense to win football games, and they have offense in droves.
Yep. December 22nd, Lions at the Bears. The Lions are a favorite now. It's a short number, shorter than a field goal. I'll take the Bears, most likely. I'm assuming it's going to be freezing cold.
Probably take it, too. Yeah. Maybe the under.
Yeah. Yep. Caleb Williams, almost a full season under his belt at that point, assuming that he's healthy. So he'll probably be a much better version of himself at that point in the season. The second favorite is the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love got paid. Should they have done it? They wanted to get that. That started as everybody else was getting paid. He was paid off a half of a year. That's a little concerning. They don't have a number 1 wide receiver, but they do have depth there. So I don't think it's that much of a concern. We saw what they did in the second half of the year. Joe Barry is finally gone. Packers fans don't have any more excuses about their defensive coordinator. So they're expecting their team to take a jump up. I like Jordan Love. I don't know that he's a top 10 quarterback. I need to see it for a full season before I'm willing to say that, Sammy.
He is priced like a top 6 or 8 quarterback. I mean, look at
I
the
know.
MVP odds. He's 15-1 to win the MVP, which is crazy. And I remember going back beginning of last season, week 4, 5, 6, there were people saying that they didn't know that Jordan Love could cut it in this league. Remember that conversation happened last fall over, many different things. Like they were dissecting every throw, and he can't read his progressions, and he doesn't make his receivers better. And then from Thanksgiving on, when ironically enough they beat the Lions, he was top 5 in the NFL in basically every passing metric. He was outstanding down the stretch, and he rolled that into a very nice performance in the playoffs. But when you look at this team, my concern is that we are putting the cart before the horse with Green Bay. The quarterback is now 15-1 or less to win the MVP. The
Yep.
team is 7-1 to win the conference. And I'm like, you got to get through San Francisco, Detroit, Philadelphia, Dallas. I could make a case for all of those teams before I would make a case for Green Bay. And last year, defensively, they were kind of blah. Offensively, they turned it up late and they
Yep.
won a bunch of games down the stretch. I don't know that their defense is any good. I mean, they're not one of the worst in the league, but certainly not a top 10 unit. So to me, the price is way too low on Love MVP and on the team to win the conference. I mean, 8-1 plus 750, 7-1 to win the conference. I'm not there, man. It ain't happening for me.
I've found myself just staying away from Green Bay. I want to see what they are at the start of this season because they were so different from the first half to the second half of the year, and it just doesn't mean as he improved doesn't mean he's going to automatically take that next step. We've had that conversation with C.J. Stroud as well. BetQL Daily, Joe Ostrowski, Sam Panayotovich with you weekdays 9 a.m. to noon Eastern here on the BetQL Network. All right, the third favorite. We talked about them on Hard Knocks. They have the offensive rookie of the year favorite. They have the coach of the year favorite. They build up the offense. You drafted Dunze very high. You bring in Keenan Allen. Swift is now your running back. Everett's brought in with Caleb Williams. You have Shane Waldron as the offensive coordinator. But my concern is on the defensive side. I still think there'll be a quality defense, but there's this idea that they're an elite defense because that's what we saw in the second half of last year after making the addition of Montez Sweat. A lot of turnovers help them out. Maybe they create those turnovers again, but typically that doesn't happen a ton in this league. And you think about the quarterbacks that they faced in that second half when they were playing well. Bryce Young, Dobbs, Heineke, very poor quarterbacks when they were dominating. So that's why I'm holding off a little bit. I think the Bears will have a good year, but this expectation that they're just automatically going to be they're going to be in the playoffs, they're going to contend for the NFC, that's a massive leap in year one. CJ Strouds don't happen very often.
I think this team is really interesting because when you look at the math, the betting math, I don't think it's a dumb bet to have them to make the playoffs at minus 110. They could go 9-8 and get into the playoffs. But my big issue with the betting content and the betting market is that people are pushing other people out of the way to bet over the win total. And I just don't understand it. Why are you betting over 9.5 when you could just bet them to make the playoffs at minus 110? I don't understand it. And then there are other people that are knocking down the door to go over 8.5 at minus 160. Just bet them to make the playoffs at minus 110. It's basically the same bet. If they win 9 games in a very top heavy NFC, they're going to get in, right? They're in with 9 wins. So my thing is simple. Save yourself the juice. Save yourself the 50 cents. And there are a lot of people watching right now that are Bears fans. You and I are from Chicago area. We have a lot of Bears people that watch this program. Don't go over 8.5 at minus 160. If you like the Bears, just bet them at minus 110 to make the playoffs. I feel like that is basically the same exact bet. The magic number is 9. But if it doesn't happen and they win 6 or 7, you don't want to lose minus 160. You want to lose minus 110. always minimize your juice when you're betting into these markets.
Perfect example of waiting and it hurts you as a bettor is the same people knew that they were probably going to bet Bears overs anyways. And you also knew that they were going to draft Caleb Williams, but after they draft Caleb Williams, the number shoots up. Early in the offseason, this was 8.5 minus 110 on both sides. And
Yep.
now it goes to 9.5, or if it's 8.5, you got to lay 160. Like just another example of that. We're not saying the Bears are going to be bad, but just at the current price, like no, you had much better numbers available to you all offseason. Minnesota's going to likely be Sam Darnold as long as he can stay healthy all year with McCarthy. So you've got great offensive weapons. They're changing a lot on defense. They're expected to be the worst team in the NFC North in Minnesota.
10-1 to win the conference, or 10-1 to win the division, rather. Definitely not to win the conference. 10-1 to win the North. They have had so many things go wrong this offseason. I mean, they've had some tragic things. They've had some injuries. They've had, departures of talent. Danielle Hunter leaves to go to Houston Texans now. He was their best pass rusher for what felt like 5 years. And now they're going to Sam Darnold. And I know, the pushback from Viking fans is, well, we won with Case Keenum and we did things with Sam Bradford. Okay. Doesn't really matter this year, does it? I don't know that they have the quarterback play. I mean, look around that division now. You got Jared Goff, you got Jordan Love, you got Caleb Williams, then you got Sam Darnold. Nah.